Hello, I'm Martin Park. For those that don't know me, I'm a naturopath and a master coach and trainer who has been working professionally in health, fitness, wellness and personal development for over 46 years. If you are someone who is interested in learning how to maximize your overall health, well-being and performance, then welcome. Over the next few weeks, I will be covering some of the most frequently asked questions I get about health and well-being. And today, we're starting with, how much exercise do I really need? A question that seems straightforward on the surface, yet after nearly 5 decades in this field, I've come to realize that this apparently simple question conceals layers of complexity, misunderstanding, and, if I'm being perfectly honest, a fundamental flaw in how we look at physical activity in our modern world. Consider this. Throughout most of human history, no one would have asked this question, as physical movement wasn't something to be prescribed or measured. It was simply woven into the fabric of daily existence. Our ancestors didn't exercise. They lived active lives out of necessity. They walked for miles, carried heavy loads, cultivated fields, built shelters, hunted, gathered, climbed, lifted, pushed, and pulled, all as part of ordinary existence. Physical exertion wasn't exercise. It was simply part of life. Today, we sit in cars and trains and buses that transport us from point A to point B. We sit at desks where we manipulate pixels on screens. We sit on sofas where we consume entertainment. We use machines to wash our clothes, clean our dishes, vacuum our floors. We order groceries online and have them delivered to our doorstep. We take elevators instead of stairs, use remote controls instead of getting up to change the channel, and text someone in the next room rather than walking over to speak with them. Today, we've created a world where stillness is the default and movement is the exception. Where if we are interested in staying healthy, we must schedule time into our lifestyles to do what our bodies are fundamentally designed to do. Let's pause and truly consider what that means. Movement, activity, exercise, call it what you will, is what our bodies are fundamentally designed to do. And for those that are shaking their heads going, yeah, but that was for those people in the past. We're modern humans now. We're different. We don't need all that kind of stuff as we've evolved. Perhaps think again. Have you ever watched young children, today's young children, those who haven't yet been conditioned by our sedentary culture to sit, watch and scroll? When they're given free rein in a park or playground, they don't walk. They run, roll, skip, hop and dance their way forward. They don't sit and calculate the most efficient path from point to point. They zigzag, they double back, they take 3 times the distance with absolutely no concern for minimizing effort. They climb when there's something to climb. They jump when there's something to jump over. They spin in circles simply for the dizzy delight of doing it. They instinctively seek out physical challenges, balancing on curbs, leaping from rocks, hanging from branches. Movement for them isn't exercise, it's expression, it's joy, it's the most natural thing in the world. When a child sees an open field, they don't think, I should run across this to meet my cardiovascular requirements for the day. They run because running feels good. They run because their bodies are designed to run, and there's an open space that invites it. And no one has to teach children to move. They do it instinctively. No one has to convince a healthy 2-year-old that squatting down for 20 minutes to examine an interesting bug is worth the effort. No one has to motivate a 6-year-old to run, jump, climb, and play for hours on end. No personal trainer is required to ensure they get a complete workout engaging all major muscle groups. They move naturally, joyfully, abundantly, because that's what human bodies are designed to do. And here's a question worth pondering. Most people assume that children are energetic because they're young. But what if we reverse the causality? What if people are youthful because they move abundantly and they become old when they stop? I know 70-year-olds who move with the ease and fluidity of people decades younger because they've never stopped moving. They have continued to engage in vigorous activities throughout their lives, and because of this, they are youthful. I've seen 8-year-olds who can't touch their toes, 10-year-olds who can't run without pain, and teenagers with the metabolic profiles of middle-aged adults with decades of poor health habits. They sit at school, sit for homework, sit for video games, sit for social media, sit for television, their bodies already forgetting what they're capable of. These young bodies, designed for abundant movement, are already displaying the physical signatures we once associated exclusively with aging. Laboured breathing, joint pain, compromised mobility, diminished energy, and postural collapse. And the psychological effects are equally devastating. Anxiety, depression, poor self-image, and a growing sense of disconnection from their physical selves. So the question, what if people are youthful because they move abundantly and they become old when they stop, isn't as stupid as it may seem, is it? When we stop challenging our bodies, when we settle into routine patterns of limited motion, when we outsource physical effort to machines and technology, we begin to lose capacity, and lost capacity feels like aging. Our bodies, these magnificent instruments designed for movement, for labour, for physical engagement with the world, are deteriorating from disuse, not from aging. Muscle atrophy, bone density loss, metabolic dysfunction, cardiovascular disease, lower back pain, depression, anxiety, cognitive decline. The list of conditions linked to physical inactivity grows longer with every passing year. And yet, despite knowing this intellectually, many of us still approach exercise as something to minimize, to get out of the way as quickly and effortlessly as possible so we can return to our chairs, our screens, and our comfortable but ultimately destructive patterns of living. In today's world, we've reached a point where movement has become so divorced from our daily existence that we're seeking the bare minimum, like a prisoner negotiating for the smallest sentence possible. So when someone asks me how much exercise they need, what they're really asking is, what's the minimum amount of physical activity I can get away with and still avoid the catastrophic health consequences of a sedentary lifestyle? And that framing reveals everything about our dysfunctional relationship with physical activity. But back to the question. The standard recommendations, for what they're worth, suggest 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity or 75 minutes of vigorous activity per week, plus muscle strengthening activities twice weekly. That's 30 minutes, 5 days a week, or roughly 22 minutes every day. But is that enough? Enough to prevent disease? Not in my opinion. Enough to thrive? No chance. Enough to fulfill your body's innate need for movement? Ha ha ha, very funny. Our ancestors didn't exercise for 30 minutes a day and then remain still for the other 23 and a half hours. So 22 minutes per day enough? It's ridiculous, completely ridiculous. The more active you are, the better your health outcomes tend to be across nearly every dimension measured. Research shows there appears to be no upper threshold where the benefits of physical activity plateau or reverse. A massive study published a few years ago found that people who exercised 5 to 10 times the recommended minimum, 750 to 1500 minutes of moderate activity per week, showed the lowest mortality risk of any group studied. That's 2 to 4 hours of movement daily, approaching the activity levels that would have been normal for our ancestors. Yet sadly, in our modern and enlightened society, even these modest targets of 22 minutes per day are missed by the vast majority of people. As in most developed countries, fewer than 30% of adults meet these minimum guidelines. Plus, even worse, nearly 30% engage in virtually no exercise at all. None. Zero. So, what's the solution? Well, first, you have to embrace the following. Human beings are movement. From the microscopic dance of our cells to the rhythm of our breath, to the beat of our hearts, to the swing of our limbs, we are movement incarnate. Our bodies crave motion the way our lungs crave oxygen and the way our cells crave nutrients. When we don't move, we wither, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually as well. As movement isn't just about maintaining muscle mass or burning calories, it's about experiencing the full dimension of our humanity. Movement is life, and life is movement. And second, you have to reframe the question. Instead of asking how little can you get away with, perhaps ask, how might I move in ways that honor my body's design? How might I reintegrate natural movement into my life in a way that doesn't feel like a burden or an obligation? How might I reconnect my body's innate desire to move, to explore, to express, to play with forms of physical activity that bring me joy? These questions, rather than the search for a minimal threshold, will guide you toward a relationship with movement that's truly sustainable and deeply nourishing. Because ultimately, exercise isn't something we should need to prescribe, as movement is our birthright, a fundamental expression of being alive. Our bodies are designed to move, not to be still. And when we honor that design, we unlock not just better health, but a deeper experience of embodied living. If you need my assistance with any of this, I will leave a link in the description. I thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate your company. I look forward to spending some time with you again. Bye for now.